Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Mento Design Academy event, how to maximize your bootcamp experience. I'm Raluca. I'm your host for today, and I'm super happy to have you all here. I see a lot of people are starting to join. So to make things a little bit more social, please type in the chat your name and where you are connecting from to get to know each other a little bit better. You will also notice that you cannot unmute yourselves or turn on your camera. That's because we want to have a good experience and to minimize any distractions as much as possible. However, if you have any questions, please write them in the chat, and me and Todd, my guest, will be able to answer them towards the second part of the event. I'll start with a quick round of introductions, and then we can dive in and start our conversation. Again, if it's your first time joining a Mento Design Academy event, this program is meant for people who want to transition to UX design, product design. It's a flexible program for approximately 6 months, and it was founded by senior designers who wanted to change something in the UX education space, and they really succeeded. As for me, my name is Raluca. I am a Mento graduate myself. I'm also a student success manager now at Mento, meaning that I'm helping students in their transition journey and try to make their life as easy as possible. And at the same time, I'm a full-time product designer after graduating Mento, and I couldn't be happier. When it comes to my guest, I have today with me also another Mento graduate. His name is Todd McCauley. I will let him introduce himself soon. Before we start our conversation, wanted to mention that if we have people who are interested in a program to learn UX design, we have a special offer for you today at Mento. We will offer $100 off your first payment, as well as 1 month free, which is going to be the last month you are enrolled in the program. So if you go for 6 months, you will only pay for the first 5 months, and so on. Also, if you're joining, again, write your name in the chat and where you're connecting from to just to make things a little bit social today. And with the promotions, let's say, out of the way, it's time to introduce my guest, Todd. I'm super happy to have him with me today. He's been an amazing colleague within Mento, and now I'm just gonna embarrass him a little bit. He was always one of those people that you want around, because he was always trying to encourage me and push me forward. Even if I didn't do something good, or even if I did something great, Todd was always there. Hey, Raluca, keep going. You're doing amazing. You're gonna do great. So he's one of those people you want around, especially when transitioning to UX design. So with that introduction, Todd, you have the stage. Can you please tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So how's it going, guys? And thank you for the kind words, Raluca, as always. It's always a pleasure to connect with you. But a little bit about me, I'd say I graduated from college in majoring in graphic design. So I think a lot of us sort of transition from that realm into UX and product design. But around the end of my graduation, one of my professors introduced me to product design, and I thought that'd be a much better fit, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more. But I currently work for Lowe's in their enterprise UX team, specializing in pricing. So I design screens and applications and experiences for our associates dealing with price changes and price updates, how they interface with the pricing system within the store. And I've been doing that for about 2 and almost a half years now since I graduated. So been blessed to have a job with Lowe's, a fantastic company. And I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to answer any questions and impart any wisdom I've gathered along the way, so I can hopefully make all of your journeys that much easier as you go along and thrive and succeed within the world. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to continue.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Todd. So you mentioned you had a little bit of experience when deciding to learn product design. Why did you decide to choose a bootcamp, and how was this start of the transition to you? Have you tried anything else? How was this for you?
Yeah, okay. So I'll go back a little bit. So initially I chose product design specifically, like I was mentioning earlier, because it mixes like a scientific approach with my passion and love for design. I felt as if graphic design had a bit of a ceiling in terms of my growth potential, salary potential, just experience potential. And so luckily one of my professors introduced me to this industry and I was sort of instantly drawn to the love of it. I think I really enjoyed doing like mock apps within college. So that's another aspect that drew me to it. But in terms of choosing a boot camp, I was lucky to have a junior product design role out of college because of networking. And so I sort of was in the job without any experience. And so I'm like, okay, I'm here, but I don't know anything. I don't know what I'm doing. And so I wanted to bolster my knowledge with like a strong foundational understanding of the key tenets and principles so I can have that as a launch pad to further accelerate my growth. So that was sort of my main motivation of selecting a boot camp. I wanted something faster, but I sort of accelerated and stronger environment of learning to foster that growth so I could better articulate my design decisions, so I'd understand what people were talking about in terms of the industry vernacular. And so I made the choice to seek out a boot camp in order to provide myself with that additional knowledge.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned you wanted to accelerate your transition. You mentioned articulating your design decisions. What other factors have you taken into consideration when choosing a bootcamp?
Yeah. So great question. I'd say there's a few things. So first, it's got to be price point. I mean, like we got to be honest, man. We got to be honest. Like some boot camps are like $28,000 a month, and I'm just not a millionaire yet, so I can't afford that. So price point for sure, and Mento stood out to me. It's very reasonably priced, I'd say. Secondly, which is probably the most important, would be the philosophy and the thought process of the founders, because I feel like the philosophy of the founders is naturally going to trickle down to all the other agents within any organization. So what they set as a standard will trickle down to the other mentors, the students within the organization. So I wanted to make sure that my values were in alignment with what they value. So obviously, since I matriculated through the entire program, there's some alignment there with what one of the founders, Radu, thinks that design should be. Thirdly, I'd say I really wanted post-completion job support. And I found that that was somewhat uncommon with boot camps. They matriculated you through the program, but they didn't really offer any secondary design support or job support afterwards. That was pretty big for me. And then thirdly or fourthly, I'd say an anti-cookie cutter approach, because as we all know, UX design and product design in general and boot camps are becoming super saturated. And so it's essential that you avoid entering in boot camps that enable you to look like everyone else, because that's going to obviously make your job hunt that much harder if you look like all the other resumes, all the other portfolios that slide across a recruiter or hiring manager's desk. So I wanted something that would enable me to stand out and portray my best attributes in the best way possible. And then lastly, I'd say deliverables. So as I said earlier, one of my main goals was to come out of this program with a polished and professional portfolio. And so I wanted a better resume, a polished portfolio, and actionable steps I could take on my job hunt. So those are the three of the deliverables I was seeking. And so those 5 things are the main criteria when I was searching for a boot camp that would enable me to pick the one I was going to go with.
Mm-hmm. Sounds great. How was the community aspect for you? Like, was this important? How did you feel about that? Having a community of people who are going through the same journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a huge part, because firstly, when you're in a boot camp and you're isolated from the other students, it's a lot harder to gauge your individual growth in comparison to people around you. I think humans are naturally a a a people who compare themselves to others in order to gauge their status in an organization. So having a group of like-minded individuals on the same journey as you is super big for me. And being able to interact with them and ask questions and see what questions they're asking is super helpful because it helps orient you on the right path you should be going. Because when you're in a vacuum by yourself, you don't have people to interact with. It's far more common that your timeline will get skewed, you'll fall behind, you'll have a lack of understanding of what you need to accomplish. So having people around you that you can interact with is super beneficial. And then additionally, I'd say just making friends. Like the people within the Mento organization, the Mento Bootcamp, are just like friendly and kind people, hardworking people. And that's the kind of person I consider myself. So having people that are like-minded it makes it way more comfortable and way more enjoyable. Because one of my philosophies is that like no matter what situation you're in, friends will make it like 10 times better. Like no matter, you could be like I don't know, like fishing on a frozen lake, and if you have friends, like it won't be amazing, but it'll be that much better. So I think the community aspect just enhanced the experience and enabled you to have a much straighter path towards the goal line of graduating.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And just to share a little bit from my experience as well, apart from like making friends, making contacts, and being able to be accountable for your work, to know where others are in the journey, it also helps when you're interacting with others by helping them, supporting them. It also helps you digest in a way the information that you're learning. So for example, what I felt during the program is whenever someone asked a question, whether that question was about research or about Figma, anything like that, sometimes I also didn't know the answer to that, but I just go on Google and try to come up with something and try to help my colleagues. And it was amazing because on one hand, I made friends. So just by helping them I worked on those relationships. And at the same time, I learned something new as well. So that's valuable because there's this, let's say, preconception that like, when people are going into self-paced bootcamps, they feel a little bit alone. They think they won't be able to interact with others because they're not working on the same projects, they are not actively attending live classes, but it doesn't need to feel that way if you try and engage others, be proactive and reach out, because people are going to be really open and really warm. So usually people in this industry are this way, and everyone is in the same boat in the end. So it's worth a try, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And what did you enjoy most during this transition, during this learning process?
There's a few things. I'd say it's got to be like the one-on-one mentorship sessions for me first, because I think that's where, for me, the most growth took place. And having a platform to interface with a designer like Radu, as you guys can see in the comments, one of the founders, having that opportunity to interface with him and like essentially steal all the 10 plus years of knowledge that he has, like just robbing him of it all. It's super beneficial because you have the perspective of like a hiring manager and a design lead and like just all this breadth of experience that you can siphon from and utilize and get a perspective on. So for me, getting that feedback as I went along from him was super valuable, because it was real time. I could adjust the changes. So I can understand why those changes were necessary. So essentially my paradigm was reforming as we went on these one-on-one sessions. So that would be the first thing. And then secondly, I would say the group sessions when we did like presentations with each other. I think one, that's great practice for the actual environment within the product space, because naturally you're going to be sharing your work. You have to articulate it well. You have to take feedback. You have to be in front of an audience of people and articulate what you're doing and why you did it clearly. So fostering an environment where you demonstrate a smaller version of that with your peers is super beneficial. Not only can you see the work they're doing and what process they take, but like I said, you get great practice explaining your process, getting feedback, and adjusting things based off that feedback. So I think it's a great microcosm for what actually exists within the industry. So those would be my two favorite things.
Yeah, it's the same for me, and we had the same mentor. So
oh yeah. Radu,
Yeah,
he's a great guy
we're
sometimes.
embarrassing Radu. Yeah, and how, like, what would you recommend to someone to make the most out of the mentorship relationship? So when going into a mentorship session, how do you make the most out of that time?
Yeah, good question. I'd say, man, if I could go back and do it perfectly, I'd say, firstly, I would have an agenda always for every, like, even if you don't have like some work to present, always have an agenda of what you want, like what answers you want, like have a goal of what you're trying to accomplish with each meeting, because that way, again, you're practicing leading a meeting and leading, like, let's say, like an interview or a presentation or a readout from research. It's great practice, but also you utilize the time because um, while you're like sort of dawdling about, you're not sure what you want to talk about, you're sort of relinquishing them to ask you questions rather than you directing them questions. You can utilize the time much better by having a timeline or an itinerary of what you want to accomplish, what you want to talk about before you even get to the meeting. So I'd say plot that out ahead of time. And then besides that, I'd say a mindset aspect is be completely open and receptive to like feedback, even if it's harsh sometimes in your perspective. I'd say be open to it and really try to absorb that information because it's coming from a good place, one, but also like you're getting years and years of information and experience distilled into this feedback. So it's going to make you better in the long haul. So as much as possible, like accept that feedback and like don't internalize it as this is me, but more so frame it as this is my working critique and try to separate yourself from that and look at it objectively. Okay, like this is what he's telling me, this is how it will benefit me, and sort of detach yourself from that ego hit that sometimes you'll get when someone will critique your work.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to do, but if you expose yourself weekly to that, you kind of get used to it, and it's really important for the future because clients, they won't be ashamed to offer you feedback. So just make the most out of the feedback during the program. Yeah, no, totally agree. Another thing that I would like to add here regarding these sessions, what I found really valuable, like in addition to what Todd mentioned, don't be afraid to be proactive, especially when it comes to feedback and your areas of improvement. So whenever you feel you need to improve on something, don't wait for your mentor to come to you with questions or to wait for a specific assignment to do that. For example, if you know that you need to improve your presentation skills, for example, just go into the mentorship session and say, hey, today you're going to listen to a presentation. I just did, I don't know, user testing for my project, and I want to take this opportunity to present this to you and ask for feedback. So you don't need to wait for a specific assignment, let's say, to do that. You don't need to wait for the end of the curriculum or for your first job. Just make the most out of this relationship by being proactive, thinking about where you would like to improve and get feedback and talk to your mentor. Mentors are usually super open to everything.
Yeah, and I'd like to piggyback. That's a great point. I'd like to piggyback off that. I'd say just like for boot camps in general, I'd say like the best boot camp and the worst boot camp have in common is that they won't be effective unless you take initiative, like Raluca said. So I think the best mentors they're not there to coddle you or like hold your hand through the process because that's going to stunt your growth. So typically what will happen within these dynamics is that they mirror your initiative, they mirror your energy. So the more proactive you are, like she said, like the more energetic you are, the more curious you are, the more they'll be receptive to that, and the more they will provide because they see you're investing your time, you're investing your interests. So I'd say instead of to reinforce what she said, to instead of waiting, take the initiative, like give it your best shot, like really lean into that challenge because the more you put up front, your return on investment will be even greater. And I'd say that you should also strive to interact with as many mentors as possible. Like don't get me wrong, Radu's definitely my favorite. Like that's my guy. But also like what Mento is unique because it offers just like a large array of different people and different expertises. So like you should strive to break out and have sessions with everyone. Like from this area, someone has Google experience or Fitbit experience or Nike experience, all this stuff. Like you can gain so much knowledge from all these different people. So I'd say reach out to them as much as possible and take that initiative. And then lastly, I'd say it's hard to do this, but before you even sign up for the boot camp or before you even get started, and you might not know initially, but think really deeply on what you seek to accomplish. Like why are you doing this boot camp and what do you want out of it? Like if you could think future state, like in a perfect world, let's say, let me look in the chat and find a name. Let's see, Julie. Okay, so for Julie, let's say she's about to start boot camp. What Julie needs to do is, okay, future Julie in 6 months, what's the best case scenario for me in 6 months? So if I was to finish the boot camp, what's the best case that could happen? What are all the things I want to accomplish? And then you work backwards from that to set up your goals. So let's say she wants to be, I don't know, like a lead product designer or something. I don't know. What's that goal? How do you work back from it? And then you establish your goals moving forward. And then from there, you'll have a much clearer pathway of what you need to accomplish and benchmarks on your accomplishment instead of just like, okay, I'm completing the task, but what is this for? Like, why is this helping me? What am I actually accomplishing? So I'd say before you start, really frame what you want to accomplish and what that perfect version of yourself looks like in 6 months and use that as a guiding principle moving forward.
It all gets down to the why. Like, why did you take this design decision? Why did you choose this color? Why are you going into a boot camp? What is your goal and why? So always ask yourself why and make a plan. It's like starting any project, whether it's professional, personal. Yeah, always think about what you want to accomplish with everything.
Absolutely.
And Todd, did you do any mistakes, or is it something that you wish you would have done more of during the program?
Oh man, where do I begin? Where's my scroll? Let me think. Okay, give me some second. Let me think here. Firstly is setting my own goals. Okay, so I think with any self-oriented or self-sustained program or process, if you don't set your own goals, your own deadlines, they're not going to be hit because you can't hit a target that doesn't exist. So I would say I would definitely orient myself to setting up goals ahead of time, setting up deadlines for myself. So like even write it out, like physically write it out on your calendar, your Google Calendar. Like this is when this is due. That's when this is due. This is when I'm going to interact with my mentor XYZ. Because when you have a structured plan, it's way easier to like slide into that and accomplish these things in a more systematic manner instead of like you do 6 hours one day and then like for 3 days in a row you don't do anything and then you're off track. So I'd say it's way more consistent and beneficial if you set up like a consistent pattern of action and a consistent schedule, you know, time permitting. I'm not sure what you guys like your backgrounds are, but time permitting, make it as consistent as possible. It makes it way less painful. And then I would also try to capitalize on the student interactions. So there's meetings, again, time permitting, go to as many as you can because you'll learn from your peers, you can get direct feedback. And then, as I said earlier, lastly, I would definitely have like a trillion one-on-one sessions with as many mentors as possible because like, it's like, why wouldn't you capitalize on your investment? Because we're spending thousands of dollars on this boot camp or any boot camp for that matter for 6 months, 10 months, 12 months. And if you're going to spend that money, why would you not get the most value possible? So if you have all this value that's out there, I would try to capitalize on it as much as possible. So lastly, I'd say, yeah, like interact with as many mentors as possible, as many people as possible, as often as possible, because all that knowledge will come in handy down the line.
Yeah, definitely agree. I was wondering now, did you ever feel like lagging behind compared to other students? Like, I think everyone is feeling this. I've also felt this. What did you do? How was this for you?
Yeah. I'd say I felt like I was lagging behind probably 98% of the time. If I had to estimate, like somewhere around 98 to 100% of the time, I felt like I was lagging behind. But I think that's kind of like a natural human feeling, like fear of missing out, fear of progress, all that good stuff. So I'd say It's kind of a mindset thing. I think most of the time, is as long as you're not intentionally neglecting your work, you're pretty much on pace with other people, give or take a few assignments. So if you truly feel like you're like really far behind, one, I would set up time with your mentor to gauge your progress in comparison to the established timeline they have for a project of this, for a bootcamp of this nature, just to see where you align, just to have that in your mind. But besides that, I would say ask yourself, do you feel like you're learning? Do you feel like you're growing? Do you feel like this is valuable for you? Because I feel like that is even more important than time. Because if you feel like you're actually learning and you're growing and developing, the time piece is irrelevant, because most of us are going to learn at a different pace, because that's just the natural nature of how people operate. Like some people read faster, some people write faster. So naturally, everyone's not going to be, set to set in terms of how they complete assignments. So I'd say keep that in mind, and just understand that if you feel like you're learning, if you feel like you're growing, if this is valuable to you, and actually you're developing skills, then you should, as much as you can, forget about the timeline. As long as you're making progress, like at a steady, consistent pace, and it's valuable to you, then like the results will come down the line. I would definitely keep the timepiece secondary as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely. 100% agree. Yeah, and you went a little bit into, like you mentioned, some people know how to write, some people do great YouTube videos. So I want to touch upon the imposter syndrome a little bit. So did you have that, and how did you solve it?
Mm. Yeah, that's a $1 million question. How did I solve it? The answer is I didn't. I
You
just live with it. Like you sit on the couch right there with me. But I would say, so for imposter syndrome, there's two things that I've done or utilized to mitigate it, not get rid of it naturally. So I'd say firstly, it's an exercise we do within the program, but we map out our strengths and skill sets. So I think once you understand that you're not good at everything, imposter syndrome becomes less strong, because when you see someone who's excelling at something in particular, it's easy to compare yourself to where they're at compared to where you are and feel inadequate, or feel like I don't belong here. I'm not good at this. But at the end of the day, we all have different gifts and different skill sets. And I think it's good to write that out and understand it. So for instance, Raluca here, like exceptional writer. Like she was good to start, but now she's been doing it for like 98 weeks. So she's like really good now. And I think that if I compared my writing skills to her, I would definitely, like, imposter syndrome would be rampant within my mind. And I'd feel down, I'd feel inadequate. So, but what I have a skill set for, and what she also has a skill, she's just good at everything. So let's not use her. But for me, for other people and me, I'm pretty good at UI design and design systems in particular. I just love like the design aspect. So I think it's good to remind yourself, like, you have your own unique strengths. And within every team, within every organization, you can bring forth something unique that no one else has. Like, even if it's your perspective, if it's your energy. So I think you should remind yourself always that the reason I'm here is to provide me. Like, it's not, I'm not just a piece. Like, at least you don't want to be just a piece in a puzzle. Like, they hired you because they like you. They hired you because you offer a certain skill set or background, and everybody has a unique version of this. So the fact that you got accepted into this boot camp, or the fact that you have this job or you have this interview in the first place, is a testament to you having value, some sort of value to offer. So remember, it's not, your value is not inherent just on your skill set. It's on your background, it's on your skill set. All these things in conjunction are what provide your value. So I'd say remember that. And then secondly, like practice, honestly, like practice. People underestimate how much 10 minutes of practice consistently will improve your strength. I'm sure you guys can see that pull-up bar in the background. Like a few years ago, I could do like 2, but you do 5 pull-ups every day, suddenly you're doing 20, like in a single instance. So consistent practice is a superpower. You get, they say get 1% better every day. So I'd say if you're feeling like you're inadequate, or you feel like you don't belong, I would say continue on that path of practice. And as you get more competent, your confidence rises. I found that confidence is the natural balancing to imposter syndrome. So constant practice, and remember your skills, remember your gifts, and remember why you're here.
Yeah, definitely. Now that you brought this up, I remember at some point you did a video for an application to a company when you wanted to start applying for jobs.
Mhm.
And that video was posted on the Slack, and everyone was like, damn, this video is good. And it was absolutely amazing. And I used to I went to my boyfriend in the other room and just he was watching TV, and I just put you on TV, on the spot. And I told him like, look what my colleague Todd did. Like, he's amazing. Look at this video application. He's amazing at doing video. I cannot do videos, but yeah. Since then, like initially I had this imposter syndrome, like, oh my God, I would never be able to do this. But afterwards I started practicing. I'm not perfect, probably I'll never be, but it helps. So if like you mentioned, if you practice, then you get there, like after you rehearse everything. And I see we have a question from Radu.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I don't know if this helps, but even 18 years in the industry, you're going to still feel this. So, yeah, there's no getting away from this. There's always going to be someone better than you doing something better. You know, I'm doing design for 18 years. I'm doing this. There's going to be someone, you know, I can look at other big names in the industry and go like, well, you know, look how amazing they are, right? Chris Do, for example, right? If you ever compare yourself to Chris Do, everyone is he seems to be very high up, right? And he's like 50. I don't know if you knew this. He's like 50, so he's like very cool dude. So yeah, I guess there's some getting around the imposter syndrome, and then there's some getting used to the imposter syndrome.
I'd say also with that, that's a great point. I think to an extent, imposter syndrome is a sign that you're growing, because I don't like, I'm of the opinion that if you feel like I've learned everything, you're in the wrong room, honestly. Like if you feel like I have nothing left to grow and I feel completely confident and comfortable in this spot, you're not challenging yourself enough. So to an extent, imposter syndrome is a sign that you're uncomfortable and you're growing. Like imposter syndrome is kind of a growing pain associated with reaching new heights to an extent. Obviously, some of it's, not beneficial, but I'd say if you feel like complete, like, yeah, I got this, like there's nothing else to learn. I'm at the top of the heap. I'm the smartest person in the room. If you're the smartest person in the room, as they say, you need to find a bigger room. I'd say so. To an extent, I'd say it's a good thing, indicating that you're on a path of growth as well.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I notice this every day, working on a project, working with clients, working with colleagues. Every day I learn something new from them. I ask for feedback. I'm trying to see what they know and just gather as much information as I can. And the more information I have, the more I learn, the more inadequate I feel. Like I still have a lot to learn, at some point you kind of think, okay, maybe I've learned a bit, so I'm kind of confident in what I'm doing. I know my stuff, but then you see other designers and you learn something new and you're like, okay, I know nothing, so I still need to learn. And it's this paradox that always goes like this. But
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, the more you learn, the less you know.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, we're gonna keep our conversation going, but if you have any questions for me or Todd, just please add them in the chat so we can answer them. So don't be shy. If you have anything, just write it there. And Todd, if you were to look back, like before you decided to join Mento, what would you recommend to people wanting to transition into UX design? What would you tell them about this transition to this specific industry?
Man, I'd say despite the prevalence of gatekeeping, I'd say it's weird because with UX specifically, there's a lot of people it's like, and development as well. It's like, here's why you shouldn't do development. Here's why you shouldn't be a UX designer. 5 reasons why you should. It's like any craft. If you're dedicated to it and you're intent on learning it, you can do it. So like, despite the competition, despite the fact that people think it's for some people and for others and not for others, I'd say if you dedicate, like anything else, if you dedicate your time to it, if you're intent on learning, if you're consistent, you can break in. Like, it might take time, obviously, but I'm of the opinion that as long as you're not, shooting for the FANG companies like straight out the gate, that'll be a lot more difficult. But I do believe that there's so many great companies out there. Like Lowe's wasn't even on my radar, and it's a fantastic company. So I'd say, firstly, that don't defeat yourself before you even start. Don't let those opinions or that perspective stop you from getting in. I'd say, secondly, I used to be of the opinion that it's good to be a generalist, but this far in my career, I'd say that if you can, as much as possible, be a T-shaped designer. T for Todd, by the way. No, it's not T for Todd, but T as in you have a whole bunch of general skills at the top, and you specialize, meaning you go vertically downward into some specialties. So if you have an affinity towards like AI or design systems, specialize in those things. So get really good as possible at those things, and then learn research, learn interviewing, learn design in general. So I'd say really hone in on a few things and generalize in other things. So that's the second thing. And then lastly, I'd say as you get in, and this is a little further along, like once you're in the industry, I'd say it's super important. I didn't do this myself when I first started, but it's important to track your growth and track your accomplishments, because it's so easy to get bogged down with the fact that I'm 2 years in the industry now, or 1 year in the industry, and I don't feel like I've moved an inch. I feel like I'm still the same designer I was when I first joined. So like a fitness journey or like a workout journey, I'd say capture periods of time where you are, capture your accomplishments, capture these moments so you can track the growth. You can see how far you've come, because that's way more encouraging when you understand I was here and now I'm here. Like, it's way more encouraging to understand that growth is actually taking place. So yeah, I think those are the 3 things I'd say, like 3 things I don't hear as commonly.
Yeah, definitely. What I would add here, because I noticed this is a frequent question, I think anyone can get into UX design, no matter the background and experience. Like, we had people getting into UX from graphic design, like you. We had from hospitality industry, finance industry. I got from the finance industry. So even if you think it's impossible for you to go into UX design because you have a totally different background, it's not. So it's definitely doable. But one thing you need to do is to think about your unique advantage. And this is something that we also did during Mento. And for example, for me, it helped me a lot because I was feeling lost. I was just like, I was bored at my finance job. I wasn't doing much. And I never thought my background could translate to UX design. But apparently some of the things I used to hate and do there actually helped me in stakeholder communication, doing design, communicating my decisions, and so on. So spend some time thinking what's your unique advantage and how your previous background will help you. That's gonna be really, really valuable. And no matter the background, you definitely have something that's gonna be unique and helpful in the industry.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's a fantastic point. I'd say, like, I've seen teachers become content strategists. I've seen medical professionals like become designers because, like she said, if you're like, let's say you're in the medicine industry, your bedside manner can translate into speaking during interviews and speaking to people within, like, your users, for instance. Like, there's so many transferable skills. It's like limitless, because UX, it's not like other than like unless you're specializing in like design systems specifically, and you need to hone in on that. Like the craft of UX has so many facets that you can enter in many doors, like she said. So I definitely stamp that with approval. And then beyond that, I'd say something I learned was that if you're going to come in on the design side, like, design is the least important of the important skills. So I would rank it like like, of course, get great at design as great as you can get, like hone in on those skills. But beyond that, people value, like people hire who they like, people like people like them, I should say. So I'd say likability factor, not doesn't mean kissing up, but like being able to interact with people well, like interfacing with in a friendly manner. You're not confrontational, like you're easy to talk to, you're easy to work with, you can communicate things well. Like those soft skills are like 2 times as important. Obviously, to get the job, you gotta have the hard design skills or content skills or research skills. But once you're in terms of being promoted, like the reason I got promoted is because I'm good at presentations and like I'm good at speaking to people in person. Like that, those are the soft skills that enabled me to get promoted far more quickly. And so I'd say really hone in on that, and then hone in on your articulation skills as well. And then lastly, I would say in terms of the question in the comments, how should we track it? Radu answered it well, but I'd say just like it's something actionable. I use something called Notion. It's a like a note-taking sort of application, $5 a month. And I use that to like track out all my accomplishments, all my notes for each feature. But I'd say, like you said, the most important thing is not the medium, not the form, not the function, but just the action of doing it. So if it's a notepad, if it's your phone and notes, like whatever you do, just start. That's the most important thing. So like just consistently track what you're doing, like have a gratitude journal. I think is also something that's really important because again, it helps frame your mind in the positive rather than what am I missing? You're thinking, here's what I've done. And I think that sort of mindset is far more conducive to growth than every day droning on about what I don't have, what I haven't done. You realize how much you have grown. So to answer your question, just do it. Like just start. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, definitely. We also have a question from the audience. So Zoe, hi Zoe, is asking about imposter syndrome. So Todd, did this ever lead you to do more than others to prove yourself? And if so, what do healthy work boundaries look like for you?
Man, yeah, these people, they're good. That's a good question. That's a good question. Man, okay, let me see. I would say healthy work boundaries. That's kind of a foreign concept for me right now, but I would say it's a balancing act. So initially, imposter syndrome can lead you to have that extra grit, that extra desire to like get yourself there. But I think it's really important, like you said in your question, to establish the fact that you can't, if you burn yourself out, it's going to be counterintuitive. Like you're going to regress more than you grow. So I'd say understand what you want to accomplish. So I think it goes back to goals to answer your question succinctly. Is if you understand the place you're trying to reach or the level you want to get to, it's far more easy to but take a break or reframe your mind once you get there. Because if you don't have a goal of what you're trying to get to or what you want to accomplish, like it's just going to be like 100% constant sprint towards defeating imposter syndrome. And since you don't have a pit stop, which is represented by goals, you're never going to have that sense of, okay, I've gotten to this place, I've accomplished this. I think that helps ease your mind of those symptoms. And then to go back to the first part of the question, to reinforce it, I think it definitely does. It leads you to sort of chasing a ghost in a sense, because again, you have your own skills, Zoe. So it's not going to serve you chasing someone else's path, because it's a completely different path and journey than you're on. So I'd say keep in mind the fact that the best version of Zoe is not going to look like the best version of Raluca, the best version of Todd. So I think it's really key to understand for you, what does the best version of you look like? And that should be your benchmark. Like you should strive to be a better version of you rather than being a similar version to X. And if you can really hone in on that and remind yourself of that, it's way easier to combat those feelings of needing to chase someone. Instead, you should be chasing how am I growing? What's the best version of myself? What are my goals? And I think that helps ease that tension we have as we're growing.
Yeah, I love the answer. Honestly, it's I can definitely relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we've gone a little bit into like the working environment, how do you feel your UX education impacted your day-to-day work?
Okay, yeah, I was looking forward to this question. So I would say, firstly, my articulation like got exponentially better because with Radu, if you don't explain something well, he just he'll sit there and wait until you do. He'll be like, okay, like
I will. I will.
if it doesn't make sense, like, yeah, I made this blue, and you keep going, keep like, okay, but why? Like, why did you make it blue? Like, why in this situation? That doesn't make sense. So I think that was super beneficial for me because before I was so used to being like, okay, here's my work, here's what I did, period. But being forced to articulate why, like Raluca said earlier, the why is everything, was super beneficial because that doesn't change when you keep going. Like, it's the higher you go, it never changes. So being able to articulate why you made a decision, especially based off research decisions and research findings, is super important. So that's the first thing I'd say. Secondly, I learned within this boot camp that intentionality and proactivity is king. Like, I think there's a stat that says if you work 13% longer hours, you earn 40% more over time, which is an insane stat. But it just shows you that being like just being a little bit more intentional or a little bit more proactive gives you like exponential benefits down the line. So like just always in everything you do, because as how you do anything is how you do everything. So just give that little bit more, even if it's a job you're not fully invested in or you feel like it's kind of a dead end project or something. Just give that extra bit more, because even if you're not trying to benefit the project or the company, putting in that extra work will inevitably benefit you yourself, and that's ultimately the goal here. So I'd say be intentional, be extra proactive as much as possible. Like give it as much as you can at that moment. And then lastly, I would say higher confidence, because that was one of my primary goals of joining bootcamp, was getting foundational understanding of UX. So before like we're talking about imposter syndrome, my imposter syndrome was like, it had a stronger identity than I did. It was like who I was at that point, because I didn't have a background of understanding the vernacular of how the industry works. So going through the entire program, like they outline everything. You understand how the industry works, what they're looking for, how things are judged, like what merits they look at in terms of promotion or hiring, things like that, how you network, how you interface with people. And so understanding all that, like this, being able to distill all that knowledge and having a better framework of how to succeed made me way more confident. And confidence and competence are inextricably linked. So as you get more confident, you become more competent because you take more risks, you articulate yourself better, you're way more inclined to push back on things. And so I'd say just having the knowledge to understand what's going on and why things are happening made me way more confident. That's invaluable in terms of growth, I'd say.
Yeah. And also to become more confident, it's also important to take initiative. So like Todd also touched upon, like to be proactive and not just like wait for tasks, wait for someone to give you something to do. Like, hey, Todd, just waiting to do a task. Otherwise, he would sit and not do anything. Just go ahead and I don't know, iterate, do designs, come up with ideas, proposals, go to your team, talk to them. It's really important to do that because you get more confident and your proposals will, like 90% of the time, will be accepted and you will receive feedback for them. People are not going to reject you just because you are new in the industry or you just finished a bootcamp. Just come up with ideas, and if the ideas are great, then you will go ahead with them and implement them. If they need improvements, then you will grow and learn because you will receive feedback on that. So that's another important thing that I personally learned from Mento, to always go ahead and be proactive and start doing things. And people will tell you if you're doing the wrong thing, but until then, just keep pushing, keep doing, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. And again, amazing point, Raluca. I'd say like I would assume that most of these people here, most of our friends here, are going to be eventual juniors in some organization, like a junior developer or junior designer. I'd say just by an order of statistics, that's probably most of you. So I'd say in that role, like she said, don't wait to be fed. Go in the kitchen and eat. All right, just like go in there and like find stuff to do. Find ways to contribute, because when seniors and mid-level designers see that your initiative is high and you want to actually do instead of waiting to be told to do, they're far more likely to trust you with more work. Like to whom much is given, more will be given to, right? So the more you show your initiative, the more you're willing to actually get your hands dirty, they'll be way more confident to give you more work because you're not just waiting to be given things. So I'd say to close it off, always remember in the junior role, I mean, it'll vary, but I'd say skew towards asking for forgiveness, not asking for permission. So do it, ask for forgiveness, don't wait for permission, because like 9 times out of 10, it'll work in your favor, or like she said, you'll get corrected. But again, that's learning. So it's valuable, like regardless of what you do. So like make the mistakes, act, like be oriented towards action, because most people are not like that. So the more you are oriented towards action and initiative, the more you'll grow, the more people will value your contributions. And again, it as well. People will associate your work and your initiative with your face, because oftentimes when you're new, like people only know you by your name. They don't know you by who you are. So the more you put yourself out there, and the more people understand who you are, the more opportunities will come, the more trust you'll have with your organization, the more you can network, because most times a lot of junior designers are completely invisible because they don't want to stand out. They feel like they don't have anything to contribute. So I'd say be the opposite of that. Like just give. Like even if you don't feel like it has value, your perspective is valued. I will tell you that right now. Like your first perspective is always valuable. So just give as much as possible. Give and take initiative in everything you do as much as possible. And I will 100%, I will bet money on it. It'll pay off.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I love how we've reached the end of the time, but I really love how we ended this conversation. Like it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So whether you are in a boot camp, an educational program, or in your first job, or any job for that matter, just take initiative, be proactive, do as much as you can, and it will definitely pay off. You have my word, you have Todd's word, and Radu's word as well. So we definitely encourage you to do this.
Absolutely.
So we are out of time for today. This was everything that I had prepared. Todd, is there anything that you would like to add? Anything worth sharing on top of what we discussed?
Life is short. Why don't you use this life to become the ultimate version of yourself? Like, you can either be average or you can be the ultimate version of yourself. So if you're going to take a path, why not take the path that leads to the most benefit for yourself, the most fulfillment for yourself? And so I'd say, like, take risks. Obviously, it's a generic statement, but I'd say, like, remember that there's a version of you existing in the ether that is 8, 10, 20 times, I won't say better, but more like greater than what you are like what you are currently. And your potential, everyone here, your potential is limitless. So like all you have to do is decide that I want to be ultimate me and start taking steps towards that. So whatever goal, like if you want to join a boot camp, join this one, first of all. But if you want to join a boot camp, if you want to get a job, why not you? You should be asking yourself that every day. Like, why not? Why can't I be the ultimate designer? Why can't I be the head designer? Like, why not you? Why? There's people in these roles, so why can't it be you? So I'd say in everything, strive to be the ultimate version of yourself, not the ultimate version of someone else. Like you as you are valuable. So the ultimate you is a million times more valuable than you imitating someone else could ever be. So rest in your skills, rest in your value, and in everything, seek to be the ultimate version of yourself. Obviously, you're not going to be perfect every day, but strive to be that ultimate version, because you owe it to yourself to extract every ounce of potential you've been gifted with and leave it on the earth to benefit others and benefit yourself. So like, just do it. Honestly, like just do it. Like there's no excuse. If no one told you already, there's no excuse. Get after it. And I'm looking forward to whatever you guys accomplish, because there's just too much potential that's wasted. So you guys got it. Honestly, you have it.
I definitely agree with Zoe. I was just about to add that, like, Todd, you don't know it yet, but you're already a mentor. So you're one of the most motivating people I've met, and you've motivated me then in Mento, and you're motivating me now and everyone in this meeting. So thank you again for the knowledge you shared and for your words. It was absolutely amazing, and I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So everyone, we've reached the end of this meeting, but we don't want it to end here just yet. So I encourage everyone to copy and paste their LinkedIn profiles in the chat, so we get to connect with each other after the event. Also, if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to Todd or myself. I'm gonna close the camera, close the video, and the sound as well. But I will leave the room open for 5 more minutes, so you guys have the time to add the links and connect with everyone. So with that being said, Todd, again, many thanks for coming today, for sharing your time with the community. It was absolutely great. And everyone, thank you for joining. Have a great rest of the evening or day, depending on where you're connecting from. And I hope to see you at the next Mento event.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.